Let's be real for a second. In this world, real men are never truly liked. Not by the crowd, not by the culture, not by the people who claim they want a real one. Because a real man doesn't fit the script. He doesn't laugh on command. He doesn't flatter just to get approval. A real man shows up with presence, still, unapologetic. And that alone makes people uncomfortable. You walk in a room and the energy shifts, not because you said anything loud, but because you didn't have to, and they flinch. You speak truth instead of validation. Now you're too intense. You enforce standards. Now you're controlling. You calmly say to your lady, "Take that off." You're not walking out like that. You represent me. And suddenly, you're the villain. Not because you're disrespectful, not because you're insecure, but because your presence forces order in a space addicted to freedom with no boundaries. You become the mirror they didn't ask for, the one that reflects everything they've been avoiding. And instead of growing from it, they get defensive. Because the truth is this: they don't hate you. They hate that you won't let them stay undisciplined. And that's why real men aren't liked. You're not just a man, you're a standard. And standards, they shake up what's fake. They ruin the illusion of freedom with no cost. They remind people that being loved doesn't mean being enabled. You're not the bad guy, you're the structure. But in a culture that glorifies rebellion and self-indulgence, structure is the enemy until everything falls apart. And then suddenly, that structure is the exact thing they cry out for. You ever wonder why they don't like you? Why they tense up when you speak? Why your name is brought up with attitude when all you ever did was hold it down? It's because you're the one they can't manipulate. They can charm the weak ones. They can play the passive ones. They can get away with chaos around soft men who fear confrontation. But you see through it. You shut down games before they even start. You walk into a room and instantly set the tone, not with volume, but with vibration. And that kind of presence, that kind of stillness, it exposes everything fake in the room. You say things like, "We don't move like that." Fix your tone. Respect the space. Not because you're trying to be in control, but because you already are. And people who crave power over others hate a man they can't move. They don't call you narcissistic because you think too highly of yourself. They call you that because you won't think low enough for their comfort. They don't call you selfish because you neglect others. They call you that because you finally put your mission first. And they don't say you're controlling because you're abusive. They say it because you don't let chaos run free in your presence. See those words? They're not reflections of who you are. They're weapons, tools used to shame you out of your power, guilt you back into silence, convince you that your standards are the problem. But real ones know that's just what happens when you're not easily moved, manipulated, or molded. But deep down, they know exactly what you are. You're the rare one, the protector, the stabilizer, the one that don't bend just to be accepted. And they don't know how to handle that because your silence makes noise. Your presence makes them feel exposed. Your standards remind them of how low theirs have gotten. So instead of rising to your level, they attack you. Not because you're wrong, but because you represent everything they secretly wish they could become, and everything they know they'll never be. You know what's wild? Behind all that attitude, behind the eye rolls, the sighs, the quiet resentment, they feel safe around you. They feel your order. They feel your covering. They feel your protection. But they'll never admit it while you're here, because admitting it would mean honoring a man they can't control. And in a world addicted to soft validation and emotional indulgence, that's too much to handle. But when you finally walk away, that's when it hits, the silence. That house that once felt full now feels empty. That energy that used to feel protected now feels vulnerable. The same presence they tolerated is now the same presence they pray for at night. Because now they understand. You weren't trying to control them. You were trying to cover them. You weren't removing freedom. You were removing threats. You weren't being mean. You were being a man.
Real men don't need to be liked. They don't chase claps, clicks, or compliments, because a real man understands his value is not found in how the world feels about him. His value is found in what still stands because he held the line. He's not posting for likes. He's not seeking permission. He's not explaining his every move, because real men live by something deeper: responsibility, vision, legacy. While others chase dopamine, he builds discipline. While others look for comfort, he leans into pressure. He walks with weight on his back quietly, but never complains, never brags. And that silence, that's where the real power is, because the truth is, most people won't understand what you carry. They won't see the sacrifices. They won't feel the decisions you had to make alone. All they'll see is that things stayed calm when you were around, and they'll take that peace for granted. But one day, when the protection is gone, when the silence feels too loud, when the storms come and the walls fall apart, that's when they'll whisper your name. That's when they'll remember the man who stood firm when no one else could. And by then, you'll be long gone, not out of spite, but out of evolution, because you were never meant to stay where your presence is tolerated. You were meant to build something eternal, something that speaks long after you're gone, a bloodline, a foundation, a new standard. You weren't building a moment, you were building a monument. And legends don't need applause, they just need to be remembered. So if you're that man right now, the one holding it all down but getting no credit, the one enforcing order but being painted as too much, don't fold, don't lower your standards to be light. Don't shrink to make weak people feel comfortable, because your strength is not for today's applause, it's for tomorrow's legacy. One day they'll understand. One day they'll wish they had listened. One day they'll miss that energy you carried with grace and power, but by then, you'll be gone.
If this hit you, if you felt something in your chest you couldn't explain, like I was speaking your story, then you already know what time it is. You don't need me to say follow. You don't need me to say subscribe. You don't need me to say tap in. If you're real, you already did. And if you're not ready, that's cool too. Just remember this video: when the silence gets loud,